Most people think that when life is about to fall apart, something big has to happen first. You have to get left. You have to lose your job. You have to hear bad news. Something huge has to hit. But the truth is, the mind can leave the present within just a few seconds. One text, one email, one look on someone's face, one debt number, or just one sentence in the mind. What if I fail tomorrow? What if they do not love me anymore? What if I cannot handle this? That is all, and the body is still here, but the mind is no longer here. It runs ahead, it goes backward, it starts making stories. It starts judging, it starts fearing, and many times what exhausts us most in a single day is not the first problem. It is the mind that keeps running after that problem and refuses to stop. This is what people today call stress. Some call it overthinking. Some call it mild panic. But if we look through the eyes of the Buddha, the problem is not simply that thoughts arise. Thoughts can arise. Feelings can arise. Vedana, feeling, can arise. That is natural in things that depend on causes. The real problem is that the mind goes into them. It grabs them, it believes them, it enlarges them, until something small turns into a whole mass of suffering. That is why so many people are not exhausted only because of the outer world. They are exhausted because the inner world does not stop spinning. Feelings can arise. Vedana, feeling, can arise. That is natural in things that depend on causes. The real problem is that the mind goes into them. It grabs them, it believes them, it enlarges them, until something small turns into a whole mass of suffering. That is why so many people are not exhausted only because of the outer world. They are exhausted because the inner world does not stop spinning. That is very important, because it means when the Buddha tells us to return to the breath, he is not giving us a relaxation trick. He is bringing us back to the body, back to what is real, back to what is actually happening right now. He also taught, when breathing in long, know clearly, I breathe in long. When breathing out long, know clearly, I breathe out long. When breathing in short, know clearly, I breathe in short. When breathing out short, know clearly, I breathe out short. Then train like this, I will experience the whole body. I will calm the bodily formation. At that point, that person dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly knowing, mindful, having removed longing and distress regarding the world. Listen carefully. He did not say, fight the thoughts first. He did not say, fix the future first. He did not say, make everything go your way first. He said, come back and know. Know the body, know the breath, know what is real. Because when the mind slips away, it does not leave us for reality. It leaves reality for stories. The simplest example is this. The phone rings. We do not even know yet what the other person is going to say, but the mind has already gone ahead. Just seeing the name, the mind starts predicting. It starts defending itself. It starts writing the conversation. It starts suffering in advance, or someone sees their bank balance. That number has not changed their whole life in that second, but the mind has already changed. The mind tightens, the mind drops, the mind starts saying, I am not going to make it. My life is falling apart. I am a failure. This is exactly why the Buddha pointed even deeper, because there is contact, there is feeling. Because there is feeling, there is craving. Because there is craving, Fires, there is craving, there is clinging. Because there is clinging, there is becoming. In simple words, something strikes the mind feels it. But once it feels, if there is no mindfulness, it does not stop at feeling. It keeps moving into wanting it to be this way, not wanting it to be that way, wanting to push it away, wanting to hold on to it, wanting to control it, wanting to escape. And when that wanting grows stronger, it becomes clinging. And once there is clinging, a self appears inside that whole story. I am about to lose face. I am about to be abandoned. I am about to collapse. I have to win. I have to get even. I have to do something right now. This is the second layer of suffering. And very often, life does not collapse because of the first problem. It collapses because of our second reaction. So then, what we call resetting the mind in 3 seconds, if we say it as directly as possible, is not magic. It is not some secret formula of the universe. It is the stopping of feeling from rolling onward into craving and clinging through old habit. It is coming back in time, back to the body, back to the breath, back to knowing. What is the mind like right now? That is enough for now. Just this much for now. Do not go farther yet. And if we make it as short as possible, those 3 seconds look like this. The first second, stop. Do not answer that message yet. Do not argue yet. Do not decide yet. Do not believe the first thought immediately. The second, know. Know that the mind is startled right now, tight, hot, afraid, unsteady, wanting to run, wanting to control. You do not need beautiful words. You do not need to sound wise. Just know it directly. The third second, breathe. Not forced breathing, not performance breathing. Just know, breathing in, breathing out. And if you can know more clearly, know the point where the breath touches, at the tip of the nose, at the chest, at the belly. Any of those is fine. Just come back to what is real. That is all. This is the turning point of mindfulness. Not erasing the problem, but refusing to feed it so it devours the heart more deeply. The Buddha spoke very strongly about mindfulness of breathing. He said that when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is peaceful, it is refined, it is cooling, it is a pleasant abiding, and it can calm unwholesome states that have already arisen. He even gave a beautiful image. It is like dust flying everywhere, and then heavy rain falls. The dust settles. I want you to remember that image. When you are deeply stressed, it does not always mean your mind is broken. It means your mind is stirred up. Nothing looks clear. Everything feels exaggerated. Small things become large. One sentence can eat the whole day. Mindfulness of breathing does not make life free of dust. It helps the dust in the mind stop rising. And when the dust begins to settle, we start to see that what hurts us so much is not only what happened. It is what the mind keeps doing with it afterward. Some people may ask at this point, but what if the problem is still there? The debt is still there. The job is still heavy. The relationship is still unclear. The body still hurts. The world is still chaotic. Yes, all of that may still be there. The Buddha did not teach us to pretend there is no problem, but he did teach this: do not let a shaking mind become the judge of everything, because a shaking mind speaks too absolutely. A shaking mind rushes to build a self, to protect itself. A shaking mind easily says, "This is me, this is my life, this is the end of me." But when mindfulness is present, we begin to see differently. Fear is just fear arising. Tightness is just tightness being known. Feeling is just feeling. It is not always self. The Buddha taught us to see form, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness as they really are. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. These are not just beautiful words. They are medicine that removes poison immediately. Because when stress arises, what makes it spread so far is that we place ourselves on top of it. From fear has arisen, we turn it into, "I am weak." From tightness has arisen, we turn it into, "I am broken." From uncertainty has arisen, we turn it into, "My life is out of control." But if we return to the breath, return to the body, return to feeling, we begin to see these things are arising, and what is arising does not have to be clung to as self. This is where the lightness of mind begins, not because the world changes immediately, but because clinging begins to loosen. And the Buddha also said something else that is very powerful, even for just the snap of a finger. If a person cultivates mindfulness of breathing, that person is not far from jhana. It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? But the meaning is beautiful. The Buddha is saying, do not underestimate a brief moment of mindfulness. Do not think, if I do not have 20 minutes, there is no point. Do not think, if I am not good at meditation yet, nothing is happening. That is not true at all. Even a finger snap of real knowing has weight. It has direction. It is not wasted. The person standing outside the meeting room, the person sitting in the car, the person who just saw a painful message, the person about to cry in the bathroom at work, the person about to type something harsh at 1 in the morning. Do not wait until you feel ready. That is exactly the moment to come back in time. And if that is still not strong enough, the Buddha also taught about mindfulness immersed in the body. He said, those who partake of mindfulness of the body partake of the deathless. That line is very deep, because he did not merely say, it helps you relax. He did not merely say, it helps you sleep better. He did not merely say, it is good for mental health. He pointed much farther than that. When the mind returns to the body, returns to reality, returns to knowing, without being dragged away by craving, that mind is walking a path out of the death of emotional swings, out of the death of rising and falling all day long, now lifted up, now crushed down, now satisfied, now disappointed, now inflated, now deflated. It begins to taste something that does not rise and fall with temporary moods. That is why an ordinary breath is not ordinary at all. And in the end, what we are talking about here is not just temporary calm. It is connected to what the Buddha taught. After I am gone, you must dwell with yourselves as an island, with yourselves as a refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with the Dhamma as a refuge, not with anything else as a refuge. Why did he teach that? Because in the moment when the mind is shaking, no one can breathe for you. No one can know feeling for you. No one can release clinging for you. Others may comfort you. They may hold you. They may help you. But the turning point, where the mind stops running along the old pattern, happens when you come back and know for yourself, when you see for yourself, when you stop feeding it for yourself. So, If there is only one thing you remember from this episode, let it be this. When life is about to drag you away from yourself, do not rush to fix everything first. Just hurry back before the mind goes too far. Come back to the body. Come back to the breath. Come back to knowing. What is the mind like right now? Then continue from there. Tonight, tomorrow morning, in the car, while washing dishes, when you see a message that makes your heart drop, try it once. You do not need to fix your whole life yet. You do not need to solve the whole future yet. You do not need to win anything yet. Just stop, just know, just breathe, and then see that between the in-breath and the out-breath, the mind that was about to slip away may not be free from all suffering yet, but it may already have stopped flowing further. And sometimes the freedom of the mind begins with just that,